Hey, what's going on? Today on Historican, we're joined by Americo Tuffy Questell, an acclaimed actor, casting director, and cultural figure whose career spans more than 30 years. A true Bronx native, Tuffy grew up in a musical family before carving out his own path in film, television, and hip hop. You've seen him on shows like HBO's How to Make It in America and on the legendary Video Music Box, where he helped document the rise of hip hop. Behind the scenes, he's cast projects for directors like Spike Lee, and through his company, Questell Entertainment Group, he continued to create opportunities that uplift community and culture. He also works with Hush Tours, guiding people through the very neighborhoods and landmarks where hip hop was born, keeping the history alive for the next generation. On top of that, he's an educator, a mentor, and a proud son of the Bronx who believes in giving back. So much that there's even a mural of him at the Boys and Girls Club. Tuffy, welcome to Historican.
Really a
Thanks for
pleasure. Thank you
yeah.
very much. Thank you very much. I feel the love. You read that and I was like, damn, that guy's good.
Well, I want to get straight into it. Your identity. I mean, I looked up your background. I didn't even know this, and you're a friend of mine, but you're African American, Bahamian on your mom's side, Puerto Rican, Dominican on your dad's side. So you've got all these amazing roots. When you walk into a room or a hip hop space, how do all these cultures show up?
They show up through a smile. That's one of the things I love about who we are as a people. We have never questioned one another. It's always been your Tuffy, your Vanessa, your George. It's always been love. What's up, Joey? What's up, Joseph? Whatever the case may be, it was never like, mira, bonita, ¿cómo tú estás? It wasn't like we didn't attack you with culture. We attacked you with love because that's what family has always done. Um, Last year, it became a conversation when certain cats, and I'm not going to name anybody, but they were like, yeah, Puerto Ricans weren't really. Stop that sentence right there. We know the truth. We were all. It was a melting pot of every culture. When I heard Spike Lee say not too long ago talking about his new movie, he said blacks and Boricuas were always together. It wasn't just Boricuas; it was Dominicans. There was Cubans. There was Panamanians. You just didn't know the difference if you weren't from that side of the fence. But we were all there. My father was born in Puerto Rico, moved to this country when he was 3 years old, 4 years old, actually a little older. But he went back and forth for the first year. But being raised in the Melrose Projects of the Bronx and meeting my mother there, who was 9 years old, delivering notes from my dad to his girlfriend, yada, yada, yada. Culture was what it was. The Melrose Projects, Patterson Square Garden, aka Patterson Projects, all of that stuff was just everything. We played ball together. We got chased by it together. We stole chips from the store together. Whatever we got ices two for $1, but we actually put two in our pocket, so it was really four for $1, and we were all sneaky. It was just what we did in the hood. So when you walk into a function, it was yo, what's up? It was family, whether it was in Spanish or English or a little Bahamian accent or a Jamaican accent. I speak with a Jamaican accent. I'm not Jamaican. It's always love. It was just what's up. We walked out and we made noise together. It was unity.
So, do you see music and the stories of your parents as a kind of inheritance, a way that culture and memory are passed down? And how has that influenced you?
I think that music is everything. I think that, you hear the sentence, music soothes the savage beast. And children need that. We all need music. My mom is a singer. My dad is a singer. My dad sings Johnny Mathis all day long. He can do Johnny Mathis like Johnny. He can do Nat King Cole like Nat. That's his voice. He's that tenor, that baritone. My mom sounds like Gladys Knight. So you think about Gladys Knight, you hear her voice. My sisters, my sisters and myself, we all were the groups. Tracy was the Commodores. Cheryl was Earth, Wind, and Fire, man, I'm so mad right now. She would slap me. Shay La Femme. I can't hear the name of the group. My brain is all over the place. But I love Stevie Wonder and Donny Hathaway. And then we all love Latin music. Like it's so funny. There's a book called um, Grandma's Grandma's Records by Eric Vasquez, and it tells the story of a boy who every summer went to stay with his abuela, and she taught him the culture. And during the culture, she would sing "En mi viejo San Juan," which is still to this day one of my favorite songs and my family song. We sing that song at every get together, whether it's a funeral or a wedding. We have to, and it starts as a ballad, and then it becomes everything else. It goes from salsa to Afro. It's everything, and that's family tradition that we do. We just can't help that. So I think that our culture shows in everything we do, every aspect of music, every aspect of food. You know, we're bad when it comes to, we go to a restaurant, if they don't make good rice, we're not eating the meal. We're walking out. Rice matters. You know, it's not just Black Lives Matters, rice life matters, because all of that matters to us. The reality is we're kind of bougie. Grandma makes the best rice. Grandpa really makes a good pastel. You know, it depends on who is what. And then you challenge that. Your Dominican friend, his pasteles is different, but it's still good. But we might be like, nah, son, your rice is a little dry. And then it becomes a challenge. But that's part of our culture. We love each other and we'll fight over bad food, but we'll accept each other no matter what. And I think that's what our culture allows us to do. And music is a huge part of that. Mark Anthony, Celia Cruz, El Gran Combo, there are certain groups that are mandatory. You know, I can still remember coming home. If I was walking home from the store and I heard Johnny Mathis, I knew my dad was cleaning, or the Cadillac, certain doo-wop groups. But if I heard El Gran Combo or I heard Telefono, I was like, oh, I'm not going there because my mom is listening to that music and she's dancing right now. So if I sit outside, I don't have to clean. I don't have to do anything. I just sit outside and listen to the music. So when the music changed, I knew they knew I was sitting outside the door. So I had to get up like I was just coming home, but I ran into somebody. But they'd always catch me because if I wasn't sweaty, they knew I was sitting outside the door cheating. So then they'd make me do cleaning. It was crazy. But that's also part of our culture. It's what it was.
Right. You got me chuckling so hard over here. What an amazing blend of, you have such a phenomenal reflection of and blend of all the cultural pieces. It's just awesome to hear.
Thank you.
Question, have you ever felt like with that rich package, have you ever been in a position where you felt like you had to either choose which one you represented, or the outside factors try to push you into a place where you had to choose which part of your cultural heritage you lean into or represent in a moment, and sort of, or did hip hop and your opportunities always leave an open context for all of it to find space?
Now it's funny. That's a great question. In hip hop, it always allowed me the opportunity. When I was doing acting, when I was asked to be in front of the camera, they'd always be like, "Can you throw a little more Spanish accent?" And that was always weird to me because it felt so stereotypical. I didn't want to play that. I didn't always want to do that. I would always bring who I was, and what you see on camera is a Black Dominican Puerto Rican Bahamian man. My personality always shined through, but there were moments I've sat down with campaigns and brands, and they're like, "You're not really Spanish enough," or "Can you not be so tough? I mean, I know you're big and you're Black, but can you shrink down a little bit?" And I don't believe in shrinking down. I think that we are huge people, no matter our size. We're a huge people. We speak with our face. We speak with an energy that's in our blood that we can't help. So when I'm asked to be smaller, I don't know how to be that, because we're not small people. There's nothing small about us. We can be quiet sometimes, but we can't be small. We should never be asked to shrink to fit in. Or what they say, bend to blend. That's not how we get down. We are a people who come with joy. We are people who come with sangre, with the blood of our ancestors and everything who we are. Whether I speak in Spanish or English or Spanglish, I'm still going to deliver the same thing. It's love. So when asked to be small, it doesn't work. When I play small, that's my choice. That's options as an actor. That's options as a performer. But like Flaco Navaja says, I'm not small. I'm never gonna be that. I'm skinny. I'm Flaco, but I'm never gonna be small. And I'm Flaco. Y'all can't tell because there's mirrors in here and smoke. But I'm really Flaco.
But that's the spirit of hip hop, though, right, Tuffy? Like that.
Yeah.
Like, yo, this who we are. We ain't apologizing or nothing for it.
I love the unapologetically Boricua, which is beautiful. So we've talked about hip hop as being a place where you're able to sort of have that space that held all of your identity. You were able to represent and be that. Hip hop has been referred to so many things, a movement, a culture, maybe a type of sound for people. Um, but question for you, because of the work you've done, do you also see it as a living archive, a place where we can represent where institutions did not want to or recognize us?
I think that most places have made it very difficult for us, unless even when we're in charge. And no disrespect to my people at Goya, but there are people in the top of Goya who don't want us to thrive because they know that the better they can control that situation, they'll get what they want from the donors, the sponsors, and more. And I'm not a fan of that. You know, I've done a lot of events. I've done a lot of events for a lot of different corporations over the years. There are people who just don't want us to thrive. They want us to win, but they want us to win on their configuration of how it should be. And I don't think that always works. That's why I say to my people, tell our stories. Write that book. I'm working on a book right now, and it's for fathers because as a single dad now of a teenager, but when I started this book, my daughter was 6 and I was going through divorce. And I think that that's one of the things that we're missing. We don't tell the bad stories. We always tell the good stories. There are things that we go through. The courts don't believe in single fathers. They will support a single mother all day long, but single fathers tend to lose the rules and don't play by the rules because the rules aren't made for them. I had a judge who was all about the other lawyer because she had a relationship with the other lawyers. I had to have her censured because I found out as a social worker prior to being a judge, 97% of her cases always sided against the men. But you don't know that unless you do your research on the people who you're doing business with or who you're doing court with, doing life with. So you have to learn these things. And as a people, we tend to not do our own homework. So I tell everyone, share your story because your story will be therapy for someone else. There are things that need to be said. As a people, we have so much struggle, and the word struggle shouldn't always be negative, but we have to work through that struggle and share that struggle, and not just the struggle in the kitchen or the struggle in the bedroom or the struggle in school, but struggle in life because we're all going through it at the same time. You know, there's 5 of us here right now, and all 5 of us at a different time have dealt with the exact same thing, but we don't talk about that. That's one of the things that I love hip hop for, and that's one of the things I love our culture. When we get together and we actually talk about things, it's like, oh, that happened with you too? But we don't do that enough. We're always hiding the things. We're always avoiding the conversation. When we were younger, we were told, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, and don't talk about money. Because those are the 3 things that people want to take from you, or they don't believe in your religion. But now, because of the guy who's in the White House, we're talking about politics all the time. And it's kind of scary because some people have no knowledge about the politics. They only know what they're seeing on their timeline. They haven't done the research. I think it's so important as a people to share with one another. You know, I love when I meet Latinos who are educators. I love when I meet Latinos who are professors. You know, there's so much great information. There's a great guy at City College who's just an amazing Latino. We interviewed him I did a show called Hip Hop Subway for CUNY last year or the year before, and it was a 6-part series called the Hip Hop Subway, and it was the Latino struggle through it all of hip hop. And we told so many great stories, but there are so many more stories to tell, and it can't always be the stories we've already heard. There are so many more, but we also have to share the good, bad, and the ugly of ourselves because that's how we grow from it and that's how we heal from it.
Mm. And that's how institutions kind of try to shift hip hop, right, to away from that. Because in the early years, we were having those conversations, like songs like The Message, talking about things that's going on in our communities. We were having these conversations, and then they were like, all right, stop talking about that and push it into commercialism, money, glamour, and all that fickleness.
Right. We lost our direction on purpose. We were forced to not talk about the truth. You know, rappers like Common and KRS-One, rappers who actually had a message, they disappeared. You know, there was a time, young, poor righteous teachers, certain rappers really gave a message of hope. You know, even early Rakim, even though he was off the ledge, he still talked about, trying to find his way. And I don't want to say that money changed it, but the industry was like, nah, shy away from that. Talk about your money and your baby mamas and alcohol. Let's talk about alcohol. And it became a whole different world. And I'm not saying that wasn't, it wasn't good. There are some things that needed to be said, but there is always room in the world for the truth. This is the soldiers of the world. We haven't had that in a long time. Self-Destruction was a great song for a reason. And hip hop changed and stopped elevating the mind of the young people who were listening to it. And then everything became, something else. I love hip hop. I still believe in it. But we still need the message has to be out there. The stories have to be told.
My brother, Tuffy, so first and foremost, I thank you already, man. This conversation of what you're talking about, right? Kind of going off script, but I think it needs to be said. We one time or another through another podcast, I interviewed somebody from Souls of Mischief, and we was talking about what you're talking about in regards to somebody from Bone Thugs and Harmony. Bone Thugs was talking about how there was a summit, all the major, right, and they had a meeting and was like, yo, you talking about anything righteous, shutting you down. Your album's not getting put out. We only talking about drug dealing, females being the B word, females being, nasty, guys, right? So you, to me, are part of the representation of what hip hop is, right? Very big difference. Hip hop, the culture, and then you have rap, right? Now we said put a C in front of it, you get crap, right? So, but the industry has been able to monetize, as you said, our struggles, going back to our struggles, right? And so here it is. Video Music Box was the conduit to putting out the new videos for all of us to see struggle, the messages and all that, because Video Music Box was, it wasn't just about showing the newest video. It was about showing the videos that needed to be seen and also giving shine to those that didn't have the shine at the time, right? So you being a part of that movement, my brother, I just gotta ask you, when did you know, or did you ever know, that it was just bigger than just a music video show, and it was a machine of us telling our stories and being able to speak about, even through the interviews, like telling the process of how you came out with this album. How did you do this? How did you do the third? And getting that different 4D version of an interview, if you would say, that it's not just videos. You know what I mean? You were a bigger part of hip hop, the culture. When did you know that?
Wow. Another great question. When did I know it? I think I figured it out about a year ago. No, I'm kidding. The funny thing is this. I used to ask questions that no one would ask. They didn't always make it on the show because I wasn't a segment producer until my 4th year in. Ralph was really making all those decisions. And I give Ralph credit. Ralph did what he did. And Ralph also was a part of the system. And not that he was all about payola or any of that kind of stuff, but when the industry shifted and the record companies started to become less prevalent in the game, they were always trying to assert their power and demand certain things of what was aired and what wasn't. Just like you just said, that summit that happened, there wasn't one of them. There were several of them over the years. Some of them happened at places like How Can I Be Down? I know for a fact Jack the Rapper was a spot where one of those happened. And there were so many different entities that try to control the game. That's also why certain artists were like, nah, I'm not recording for you any longer, and I'm gonna go on my own and do this independent game. And that's cool too, because that worked for some people, especially if you had a name. It didn't work for everyone. That's why we lost rappers after one album in some cases, or after a single. The industry definitely crapped, like you said, on the game a lot. Which is why underground rap became what it was, which is why Souls of Mischief and Breakbeat Lou and certain artists really were able to shift or pivot, as they say on Friends. Making a pivot is so important. I think that for me specifically, I loved talking to artists. I loved talking to my friends who were artists and just asking them the questions, talking about their family, talking about the changes, talking about what they wanted to be versus what they were. Like, I'll give you an example. When not Fushnikins, my brain is give me a second. I have to play in my head. There was a group that signed. They ended up signing to Atlantic with Clark Kent. That when they first came out, the name of the group was supposed to be these African words, and they were really about positivity. And they just really had a great message for their entire album. Every song was a story about where we came from, and they ended it with village information about certain villages in Africa. Like, they were really, really phenomenal. And Rickety Row and Clark Kent changed their whole image, and made them something else. And he made them something that made him the producer of the day and another dude. And it worked for him and it worked for the group, but it didn't work for the industry, because that could have been the album that shifted the game in the right direction, but it didn't. So I think that there were artists that just along the way, they learned to dance the new dance, by choice, sometimes by force, and sometimes by poor choice.
And it, and so is the story of us, right? Black and brown, create something, gets taken, industry, right? They taken and use it for their own good or their own, our bad, their good. We would be remiss, my brother, if I didn't ask you this. You had iconic interviews. Stepped down, spoke to many people, right? I gotta ask you, what was your favorite interview? If you have one, what would you say is your favorite?
That's I've gotten that question a few times, and I think I've changed that answer every time, because I've had some really great interviews. Like, I'll tell you one of my favorites, and this is the sad story for me. I don't talk about this too often. I interviewed Biggie, and we shot it at what used to be the Fridays restaurant on 42nd Street, and I think 3rd Avenue, right on the corner. And we were downstairs and we talked for about 30 minutes. And the camera guy had no audio. So it was just us going. And when he realized that he had an audio issue, whatever he did, deleted half the tape. So the interview was basically shot. It's a great conversation for me and Big, but no one ever saw it because there was nothing good on the tape that was usable. There was no audio. There was very little video, so it went away. I love that interview. I was on the set of Juice. I did some interviews on the set of Juice that Ralph is starting to air now, and Ralph did some and I did some. I don't know if those are how much of that will air, because he's funny about that stuff. He has 55,000 hours of footage. So just imagine. And he's right now he's digitizing all of it. So that's going to take some time. But I really enjoyed interviewing Marky D from Fat Boys. I love Mark Morales so much. And I was working at Polygram when they were signed to Polygram. So I worked the Disorderlies movie and soundtrack. So we have a lot of stories to tell, and we laughed about that. Just so many great interviews over the years. I think Brandy was an iconic one. I definitely think Nas was definitely an iconic one. Nas is one of my favorites. I have a bunch of Wu-Tang ones because Ralph was like, I am not driving to Staten Island. So I would drive to Staten Island pretty often. And no one, listen, I had family that lived in Staten Island that I never saw. And when they moved to Atlanta, I saw them often. Like, Staten Island is just out of the way. It's closer to Pennsylvania in my mind than it is to New York. I've been blessed to have some really fun interviews over the years. Biz Markie, Lord have mercy. Biz was always fun, and he would be like, "Stop talking, Tuffy." Like, he in my mind, he sounds like Tracy Morgan, but that's another story. Like, they have very similar intonation. I've had some fun interviewing Tracy Morgan. I don't know if I have a real favorite. I remember interviewing Ralph for Ralph's birthday party. And Ralph and I, whenever we get together, it becomes something else because that's my guy. So I've had some great interviews over the years. I'm very fortunate. I don't know if I have a full on favorite, but I love them all.
I gotta tell you, man, just to be real with you, right? My affinity, it has to be the young Nas. You know what I mean? That was just, you know what I mean? Young dude, they didn't really know where he was gonna go, but you captured something during that interview that allowed the lineage of what we see today to be a part of that. Just because Nas has always been, you know what I mean, solid dude from what he is. Again, the epitome of what hip hop is, right? And speaking on you in regards to the four elements, the culture, breakdancing, MCing, right, DJing, all that, you are, by all means, the nucleus part of that nucleus.
Thank you.
And I got to tell you, the fact that you're doing, you know, this the Hush hip hop tours, man, I think that, again, stories that people, the younger generation doesn't know about, and things that are happening in the city that's around them, you know, to see, for whatever it is, a mural on a street wall, and people don't understand why that mural's there because the dude lived right here the whole time, like, or right. So, can you speak to us about the Hush hip hop tours, man? What that means to you, how it started, and you know what if anybody wanted to kind of be a part of that, how can they partake in something like that?
I love Hush Tours. For Hush Tours reinvigorates hip hop in my spirit every day. Hush Tours started 24 years ago. Deb and John put it together to illuminate what hip hop was for them, to tell their stories, to tell our stories, from every perspective, culturally, personally, provocatively. It's such a great tour. I've been doing it with them for about 4 years now. They asked me to do it many years ago, and I was just too busy. I was a new dad. My daughter is 16 now, but they asked me to do it years ago, and it just didn't work out because I was really enjoying being a dad. One of the best unpaid jobs you'll ever have. If anyone's watching this and you want to be a dad or a mom, please do it, but pick the right person because psycho is not so fun to dance with. Dance with the right person. But Hush Tours allows me to relive telling stories to people who have never heard them, and there's the joy. Do you remember watching the Snowman Christmas movie? That every time he put the hat on, it was a new Merry Christmas. He was just so happy. That's that feeling I get every tour. I love that feeling. Telling somebody a story about Flavor Flav or Large Professor or MC Search, who I went to high school with, or Ricky B, who I went to high school with. Telling these stories is fun for me because I'm reliving it too, but I'm watching them enjoy it for the first time. And I get that whole putting that hat on, that snowman. That feeling is so great. And it's a gracious feeling too, because it reminds me of why we do this, why hip hop matters so much. And we have so many repeat customers. This past weekend, I had a tour, and I had a brother who was on the tour 15 years ago and was on the tour this weekend with his 11-year-old son. It was his son's first tour. So to tell him stories that his father heard with Grandmaster Caz 15 years ago was crazy. And it's amazing to me to be able to see him and his father dance together to hip hop beats, to see them watch some graffiti being done right in front of them, and to teach them the four elements of hip hop, the four elements of breaking. You know, the date August 11th, 1973, the infamous date that it all began. I mean, we know rap music was going on before that, but it wasn't really. August 11th, 1973 is the date on record that Kool Herc had his party at 1520 Cedric Avenue. And we credit that, and we honor that. But there are so many great stories to tell. You know, Grandmaster Flowers, DJs were in every borough. Ralph McDaniels was DJing back then. There were DJs everywhere. We all knew DJs, and we all messed up our mom and dad's needle trying to scratch a record. We all did it. No one can say they didn't. We had high fives. So when you scratched and that speaker was like, we loved that feeling, that whole sound. I was terrible at it. Do you remember the first record you paid money for from your own pocket? Mine was Cold Crush Brothers, Crush Rock Rap. Everybody hated that song. I love that record because I love music so much. Anything that they were singing on, we can do it, and so can you. It only takes you a minute or two. The record was terrible. But when I told Kaz that was my favorite record as a kid, he was like, tough. That means something to me because I love that record. People, the street hated it, but that's okay. I was on the street and I loved it. I bought 12 inches of that and a 78, and I played that joint. I bought it from Prime Video when Prime Video was Prime Records back in the days. And I remember having an argument with Sam, the tape man, where everybody used to go buy the mixtapes from in the flea market. And I was like, that record is fly. I don't care what you say. And he was like, your opinion's crap. And I was like, what? And we went at it. All of that are stories. Those are stories that matter to me in my hip hop heart. And when I tell those stories again and relive that, and I show them the Apollo, and I show them where Teddy Riley's from, and I show them where Rob Bass shot It Takes Two on 125, when I walk them through all that, and then I take them to the Bronx and I show them the Joker's Day, all those things are part of the tour. And I also incorporate me as a filmmaker and a casting director because that gives them a whole nother edge. And I try to tell every tour something different so they all get something unique to this particular tour. But I've been doing it for 4 years, so I might be running out of new things to tell, but I still give them a perspective that's different every time, and it matters to me. And then if people want to come on the tour, you can go right to my Instagram. It's in my bio, and my code is Tuffy HT, which is Hush Tours. Tuffy HT, and you can get a discount, and I get a little check.
That was a perfect segue. You did it for me because I wanted to now go into your other life, your other career as a casting director. You've helped as a casting director, you help decide who gets seen. So do you ever feel a pressure to challenge stereotypes in the choices that you have to make as a casting director?
I think that we have to fight. We have to fight for all of it. The stereotypes are there. When they say, I did a movie called Freedom Land, and the casting director above me said that there are no pretty people in the projects. And I was like, I'm sorry, Halle Berry's from the projects, Jennifer Lopez basically from the projects. I said, we can name people all day long. And she was like, well, this is my movie. I was like, actually, it's not your movie. I said, it's Scott's movie, who's the producer, and it's Joe's movie, who's the director. And she said something that I'll never forget. She said, well, I make the decisions, and I say no pretty people in the project. I was like, first of all, there's no one in this room that's Black or Spanish. I'm the only person who represents my people in this room. You have no clue because you sit in your white ivory desk space and you talk all this crap about people who you have no connection to. I said, so before I jump over this desk and remind you that I'm Black, Dominican, Puerto Rican, I'm going to let you know I'm out of this meeting, but Joe, don't let her finish this film. And I walked out. Scott Rudin sat there and she was like, Scott, you going to let him talk to me like that? And he was like, not stopping, Tuffy, because it was what it was. But she was out of pocket. For her to talk to me like she had a right to. So yes, the arguments happen. There are casting directors who I'm not crazy about. There are producers who I'm not crazy about. There are directors who I'm not crazy about. But that's humanity in general. There are some really one-sided people who are nearsighted in their anticipation of what's next for our people. They think that we should all have gold teeth and we should all have a part in our hair and we should all talk like Tony Montana. And that's just not the case. We are a diverse people, whether we are brown skin or light skin or fair skin. We don't all look alike. We all don't sound alike. And we all don't sound like Tony Montana, who wasn't even Latino. So the argument is always, you have to give us a chance. And I fight for us. I think back to Michelle Rodriguez, great young actress. When I met her on the set of Summer of Sam, and she was an extra. And we're in the cafeteria during the break, and she was telling me she had an audition for this film. And I was like, well, good, go. She was like, I'm a little nervous, it's like the lead role. So we had this conversation, and we talked, and we listened to her, and we convinced her. We even let her leave early so she can go home and get prepped. And she was auditioning on Saturday for Girl Fight. And Girl Fight was a film that changed her career and changed everything about her life. So any opportunity to inspire our people, whether it be culturally, whether it be musically, whether it be spiritually, whether it be cinematically, we're going to take that opportunity. So we're always trying to nurture our talents and our people. And there are times when we get people, like we've had to erase people from films. We had a guy on a film for James Samuels right before we did The Harder They Fall. It was a cowboy film, and he thought he had to walk like John Wayne. He was just way too much, and it was way too much on camera, and he just wouldn't listen. He kept stopping and pausing and doing things that were out of pocket, like a peace sign. Who's doing a peace sign in the quote unquote 1800s? It just wasn't natural. So we had to erase him out of the film. And that costs money, but it's easier than to explain the mistake of leaving him in the film. And that's a young brother who looks like me and looks like y'all, but he was wrong. And he thought he was right, but he was wrong. So there are moments where we have to either remove you or physically erase you off the screen. It doesn't happen too often, but you try your best to cast accordingly. There are always descriptions, and sometimes those descriptions can be a bit offensive. But we're honest about what we need and what the look is. The director has an idea of what they really think for each role, and we have to find and fulfill those needs. So as a casting director, I get the opportunity to do that. I'm painting a picture for the director to tell his story.
Well, you kind of already answered my second question, which is great.
My bad.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But so I guess a follow-up question would be your role as a casting director. How would you say, like, this isn't necessarily a storytelling role, but it is. I mean, you're aiding the process. And so what are some of the projects that you feel like really defined what that is for you? And then a follow-up question would be anything in the works right now that you're working on that you feel fit Tuffy, like who you are as a casting director, who you want to represent, and how you want to represent your people.
It's funny. There's a script that's being worked on right now. It's a book that Luis Guzman owns the rights to. And it's a beautiful. Louis is my guy. I love Louis to death. He looks great. Have y'all seen Wednesday? Phenomenal. He killed it. I laughed so hard at certain scenes. He just kills me. But I love Luis Guzman. Every time I get a chance to work with him. But this particular project, we haven't found the right script that makes him ready to say yes to it. But it's such a great book. And I think that project is going to happen in 2026. I'm very hopeful. I also have, and this is I'm telling y'all, y'all are gonna be the first time hearing this. No one's been told about this. We're doing a Latin version of Sanford and Son called Santiago and Son. Really phenomenal. And I am playing Freddie Santiago, the lead. I'm really excited about it. I'm helping with the casting, but it's really just it's a personal project. We've been developing it for a few years. I'm very excited about it. It's being helmed by Nelson Quinones, our showrunner, and it's just going to be brilliant. We've had some really great meetings about it, so I'm just trusting that that's going to be ready for 2026 as well. And then there are casting projects like there's a film I'm doing in Trinidad that we've been trying to complete for the last several years. We have our lead. The director is really ready, but we keep having issues with the way actors change, the way agents gatekeep, and that's one of the things I really don't like about our industry is, hypothetically speaking, I call an agent and I say, I really love your talent. I want to hold so-and-so for a job. This is what we have to pay. The budget's only $2 million for the entire film. So I can give you, your talent will work 6 days in Trinidad. We'll give them amenities. We'll give them the hotel. We'll give them all the things. We'll give them travel. And we only have, let's say, $15,000. And they use my offer to try and get their actor on another job. So now it's playing the waiting game, and I have 5 other actors that I want to call for the same role if your actor's not available. But don't tell me, let me talk to the actor, and then I find out from the actor who's a friend of mine that, one, they didn't tell him about the job at all. So they're not talking to the actor. They're making decisions for the actor without the actor's knowledge of it. Or 2, they're using my film, like I said, to finagle another situation. They're calling Marvel and they're saying, listen, I know you need a Latino this or Asian this or whatever the case may be. And I need you to make a decision quickly before we sign them onto this job that's going to take this time. And they do that to set up their actor, but they're also setting up other actors who are part of their roster. So the real finagle is the actor who I called about might not even get either job because the agent is taking too long to make a decision, or they're not doing it for the actor at all. They're doing it for another actor on their roster who hasn't been getting work. And it becomes a waiting game. And for me, most actors, most casting directors, we put a time frame. The offer is good until a certain date. If you don't call by that date, the offer is gone. I've rescinded it, and I'm able to make the offer to another actor. So it's ugly to play the game, and that's why it's easier for me to call an actor. Like, for instance, I might call someone who Vanessa knows and be like, listen, you want to work on this job? I got this dope script. We got a budget. I want to give you this, whatever the case may be. So those relationships are the best way sometimes to usurp the unadulterated authority of the agent. Now, granted, I'm still going to call the agent and work out their contract. But once I have the actor in place, it's easier to get the job done. We can move forward. We can shoot the film. We can negotiate everyone's contracts, and we can move on. But sometimes, there are agents who really don't care. It's depressing. Did I answer both of your questions?
You did. You got it.
I love what I do. I got to say that. I love filmmaking. I love being a casting director. I love being an actor. I love being a man of God. I love being Tuffy, and I love being Taylor's dad. That's my daughter. And I love being Puerto Rican and Dominican and Black. I think that it is so essential to love everything that you do, even if you don't like it. It's okay not to like everything. Listen, I love everyone. I don't like everyone. You have to love people because we're all made by the same power. We're all brought into this world. And yeah, we all have our own issues, our own ugliness, our own stuff. So love people. Loving is easy. Liking is hard because I got to know you to like you. I got to get to know you because I have aunts and uncles and theos and theas. They're mean. They're not nice people. I still love them because they're my family. I don't like them because I'm not gonna say anyone because I'm gonna get yelled at by my family in a minute. They'll find out and they'll write me right on WhatsApp. We all got the family chats in WhatsApp. They'll be like, "Dite Tuffy, what you say? What you say about Titi Norma?" And I'm not. Titi Norma's my girl. I just mentioned her because it's fun. But it's so important that we find a reason to exist with each other, to cohabitate with each other. Music is a good way. Food is a good way. Culture is an important way. And just love. I know y'all didn't expect me to go off on this tangent. I just started talking, right?
No, that was good, Tuffy. You've been dropping a lot of gems, man. We appreciate everything that you've been saying. We just thank you for your time as well. Before we get into it, I want to get into your legacy. I kind of wanted to ask also, what would you say is the legacy of Video Music Box? Because we're from the generation, all of us here is like, yo, we lived through that. When it being on TV, a lot of this younger generation, they don't even know what Video Music Box is. So if you can educate the younger generation and talk about what the legacy of Video Music Box is, we greatly appreciate that.
Video Music Box, like a Joe Conzo or certain photographers who really gave us the baby steps of hip hop, the baby steps of rap. Video Music Box has been on 44 years, 45 years. Hip hop's been around 52 years. Video Music Box was the first camera allowed backstage, was the first interviews for a lot of these artists. When given the opportunity, to go to the Fresh Fest back in the days, to go to so many of the concerts back in the days, Ralph took every opportunity he could or would. And of course, like I said, sometimes he'd be like, I'm not driving Staten Island. I'm not driving New Jersey. And Tuffy was always willing because Tuffy was younger and Tuffy had the car and Tuffy had friends who was down. So Video Music Box allowed me to tell the story of hip hop steps, from baby to toddler to young adult to merging artist to rapper to producer to director to CEO. We watched every rapper grow. We helped them. We gave them direction. We gave them the car keys. We gave them gas. We downloaded and printed out MapQuest so they had directions. We gave them all the information, and then we said, here, go get it. Go do the things. And that's what Video Music Box was, the parent to a lot of hip hop. We created the opportunity. We drew out the roadmap. We used pencil and pen, and we even used that little silver thing that you have to use in school, where you put the pencil on one side with the point.
Protractor.
It was like a compass. What was it called?
Protractor.
Protractor. And it was all of that. We used all of that and we used reinforcements on the divider pages. We did all the things in the early stages to help hip hop find its way. And I'm very grateful to be a part of that. And you know what's funny? I'm going to go back a second. George said my favorite interview. One of my favorite interviews was Heavy D and Pete Rock before Pete Rock's album dropped. I was interviewing Pete Rock, and he was talking about his boy Corey and his music coming out. And while I'm talking to Pete Rock, Heavy D walks into the interview and he says, if Pete Rock wants to get a ride home, he better stop talking to Tuffy. And that is probably my favorite interview because one, I miss Hev. Two, I love Pete and Hev. I love Mount Vernon and I love hip hop. I love hip hop for every corner of the globe that it's taken us to. So hip hop, as the legacy of Video Music Box, is that we touched every hip hop artist along the way as we grew, and not in the inappropriate Epstein Files way. a little relevance to the conversation. And I think that I'm very grateful. My daughter has been on private planes and been talked to by artists of all types. And she doesn't understand always why they love me, why they appreciate me, why they honor me or respect me. And that's okay. She still is excited when she meets them. You know, the Donnie Wahlbergs of the world who call her their niece. You know, she was like, Dad, why couldn't Tupac stay alive till I met him? And I was like, you can meet him in his music. Just listen to his music. That's the closest we're gonna get to him right now. I bought us matching Tupac shirts. She took a picture with my parents in their 80s going like this from a Tupac shirt. Sorry to the audience, but she loved that. Like moments like that, she got her Tupac moment. So there is such a connection and such a bridge. Hip hop has allowed us to build that bridge, and that bridge never ends. That bridge can go from here, from the streets of the Bronx to Puerto Rico, to Portugal, to Germany, to Dusseldorf, to anywhere you can name. Hip hop has that bridge, and we're all a part.
That was so beautifully said, man. I appreciate your words. And Video Music Box is definitely like one of the pillars of hip hop at its core, and you were a big part of that. So we appreciate you. So since you've captured those stories, now there's a mural of you at the Boys and Girls Club. What does it mean to you now to become a part of that story after so many years of being one who tells a story?
I love that. That mural made me cry. I remember when they asked me, they called me and they said, are you interested in having your face at the wall? I was like, as long as I'm not against it with my hands up like this, we good. It was Coca-Cola. It was my friends at Rock the Bells. And I told Ralph about it, and Ralph was like, oh, that's dope. Because if they hadn't even done Ralph's wall yet in Brooklyn, it was kind of funny. So it was just the perfect timing. I feel so blessed to be able to stand in front of that wall with my daughter, and to be me and D Nice and Grandmaster Flash and then SJ Fennel and Amadeus. It's just a blessing to know that that legacy is there. And I pray that it stays forever. I know it made me laugh. They said that all the faces are permanent except for mine. Mine can be erased. And that was just a joke from Andre Trenier, the artist who drew it. And you know what's funny? Another connection, Andre Trenier, who is the artist who did that mural and does a lot of murals, is the brother of Dominic Trenier, who was a music producer in the 80s and 90s, who was a good brother and in hip hop and just a great artist in his own right. Rest in peace, Miss Dominic. But I love that connection. There's always a hip hop connection to everything. And that means the world to me. But the fact that Dom's little brother put my face up on a wall and my face is there, eternal reasons and posterity, I feel honored by that. That blessed me so much. And then to have my mom and my dad and my sisters and my daughter there the day that we unveiled it was just, that was it. If God took me home that day, I'd have been pissed, but I'd have been okay. Yeah.
And you also, you had touched on it a little bit that you're writing a children's book. How different it is to tell the stories for kids now compared to for the screen.
I think it's very different. I think that everyone wants to be excited. The whole world is so drawn to social media, and everything had to be like this. And you know, I think everyone. I don't know all your ages, but we all were here when there was no internet. You know, that's an amazing thing. So I respect what the world is doing, but I don't want social media to drive everything. I don't want to wake up and the first thing I look at is Instagram or Facebook. I used Facebook for my daughter when she was a child and we couldn't travel the world because I wanted her to know who her cousins were in Colombia, her cousins were in Africa, wherever they were. You know, I have cousins who travel the world. I have missionary cousins. So there are people who we don't see every day. You know, like I can't see y'all every day. So I would call y'all on FaceTime or on Zoom so we could see each other. I think that it's a social construct, but it shouldn't be the only social construct. I think that telling these stories, writing these books are so important because one, we know that the world right now this particular administration is trying to shut those down and remove those. But the reality is those books will be everywhere. Just like film and television, there are people who have never seen Friends, but have seen all three Blades because film is the most global element there is. Whenever I do a casting class or an acting workshop, I always ask the students one question. If you had to choose film, television, or theater for the rest of your career, you can only do one. Which would it be and why? And most actors find it difficult to answer that question because you don't want to be pigeonholed to one. But answering that question only tells you where you are today. Theater, you love the sound of the applause and the immediacy of the receiving your gift right away. Television, you love that ensemble, and you also love the global impact it has, and you also love the fact that you're getting really paid well for reoccurring work day after day after day after day. And then in film, it's the global reach beyond everything else. Again, I don't think that there is a wrong answer to any question. You just learn from your answers. Your answers today define your decisions for tomorrow. So I do think that I love what I'm able to do. I love what I'm able to show. And I think that my legacy is all of it. Just like you're a part of my legacy. Everything we do is a part of tomorrow, today. And that's our legacy.
How do you tie your faith into that? Because I know you're a man of God. I'm a man of God myself.
I love the Lord and he makes me laugh. And I make him laugh a lot. I think that God gives me papao very often. I think that he is, just imagine, he created Richard Pryor, Jim Carrey, George Carlin, Kevin Hart, all your favorite comedians. He created them. So how funny is God? You know, I love to laugh. I think God laughs so much that that's what we hear when we think it's rain. It's really God's laughter. I like to believe that at least. I think that it's so important to honor God. I think that the reason why we become parents are to understand who our parents are, who our parent is, and who our children will be because of all of that together. I told my daughter, when you graduate from high school and then you graduate from college, you get that degree for three people. You get it for your parents because you want to honor the work that they did to put you together to do what you do. You get it for yourself last, but you get it for your children because they have to aspire to do greater things someday if you ever choose to have children. And then lastly, you get it for yourself because you have to say to yourself, I achieved that. I did that. Even if it takes you 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, if you get your degree when you're 60, you still got your degree. It doesn't matter when you get it. Achievements come at any grace. And I think that God's grace is limitless. I don't think he ever gets mad at us. I don't think he ever turns his back on us. I think he just says, did you really want to do that? Did you really need to do that? Did you have to prove anything to her? I think that I love the Lord, and I find myself questioning him a lot more these days, because as I grow in the world, and I mean traveling wise, not the world, but when you meet people from different cultures and you listen to their ideologies of Christ, it's so interesting. You know, it's almost like when you watch the Malcolm X movie and how you saw Malcolm went to Mecca and he found a different perspective. You know, all those years thinking that white people were the devil, and then he met white people who praised like he praised, and it changed his perspective. I think that that's important. I think we need to get our passports and go see the world, and God will open up the world to you in such different ways. We have to not just declutter our homes, but we have to declutter our minds in order to understand what God truly wants for us. That's a perspective that the world will show us, the traveling of the world.
Amen. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you so much.
No doubt. Listen, y'all can have me
Definitely.
anytime. I love y'all. This was great.
I gotta say this, man, before we get off, this needs to go live.
Yeah.
Brother, you not gonna small flex us like that. The fact that you were part of the casting crew for Harder They Fall, my guy, that has to be one of the strongest casted, one of the strongest, first of all, Westerns, right? Told from the perspective of people of color. A whole full black cast that legit probably equates or even better to the Young Gun of the old. So
Yeah.
thank you for that greatness, brother, because
Thank
truth of the matter is, I done seen that easily 8, 9 times. And when you said it, I was like, yo, hold the hell up. I forgot. Yo, you touch gold, man. Everything that you touch is gold, right? So thank you, man, for your legacy needs to be spoken. The fact that your face is on the wall of a boys club and the community that you been helping and doing the things that you're doing, that within itself speaks greatness. So honor.
Thank you.
Honor.
The Harder They Fall was one of my favorite jobs ever. I did day players, I did extras. I spent 10 months in New Mexico working on that movie. During COVID, which was crazy. We were about to start shooting when COVID closed us down on March 13th. I'll never forget. That film was phenomenal. Regina King every day would come to my office, take my phone, and call my daughter on FaceTime. Taylor said Regina King is her other mother. That's another story. But James Samuels was brilliant. I was very blessed to help with the principals. I came into it late. They started a year earlier. They kept having issues with locations and schedules. Jonathan Majors is still my dude to this day. I love him so much, such an amazingly talented actor. And listen, what you saw was what we ended up doing. COVID changed the cast. You know, Danielle Denweiler, who was phenomenal as Cuffy, was originally the mother in the beginning, who was eventually played by DeWanda DeWise. But I can tell you all the changes, and then you can see it differently. Like, imagine Delroy Lindo, who played a role, that role was almost played by Wesley Snipes. Like, the changes are phenomenal. They're crazy. It's crazy. But I loved everything about that movie. I learned to appreciate New York differently after living in New Mexico for 10 months. I love hip hop. I love what hip hop has afforded me, and I love casting. I love film and television. I don't care if I'm casting principals, extras, day players, whatever the case may be. I'm down for all of it. Let's go. I appreciate y'all. Thank you. This was so much fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
That
Tuffy.
was amazing.
So blessed.
Yeah. No, thank you.